Hi, I'm Alex Weathersby, and today I'm going to tell you about my top 10 favorite web series that I watched in 2018. I watched quite a bit of new content. A lot of really great series came out this year, a lot of great series returned. In 2018, I watched 32 seasons or full series. So some of those included things like 20 and A for O, where it was just a second season, and then some of those were brand new series that either premiered this year or I just hadn't seen them before. A couple of these on my list are actually just individual seasons and not necessarily individual series, because I might have watched the first season last year or a couple years ago, so that's just to clarify for you. This list does not include series that I'm still in the process of completing. Series that I started watching this year, like Project Green Gables or Four Pals and a Dog, will not make it onto this list, even though I'm really enjoying or have enjoyed their content. So hopefully that also clarifies why some series that I clearly enjoy very much have not made it onto this list. So these aren't in any particular order of how much I enjoyed it versus whether I enjoyed other ones more. It's very difficult for me to do that just because series can be very different. If you have vlog style versus mixed style versus TV or cinematic style, whether it's literary based or whether it's original. So it's very hard for me to compare and contrast them directly like that. So these aren't necessarily going to be in a list of, oh, this one's the #1 series I watched this year. The first series that I watched this year and would put in my top 10 would be Black Girl in a Big Dress. I watched this earlier in the year. I think I watched it sometime in the summer. Made it into my top 10 because it was so funny, and the main actress really had a lot of great comedic timing. She was really leaning in to the different parts of this character, a character who's very nerdy and has a lot of what the general society would think is really weird and specific interests, but she's adorable and very endearing. I really liked that it was a concept that I hadn't seen before. I liked seeing all the different ways that she tried to inject classic Victorian food and behaviors and mannerisms and dress into her daily life. They should have a second season coming out in 2019, so I'm very excited to see that as well and see new characters and how Adrian's journey and quest to find love is going in the new year. That would be one of these series in my top 10. Another web series that makes it into my top 10 of 2018 is Sam and Pat Are Depressed. So I've talked about the series quite a bit. There's a review on this channel. This series is very short, it's very bingeable, which is one of the things that I like about it so much. I've shown this series to quite a few people. I find it personally very relatable with their type of humor and how they are coping with anxiety and depression, but they still find ways to make it very funny and not very after-school special. So I really liked the series for those reasons. I think it really just has the vibe of 2018, I think, that a lot of us are feeling, where like everything is awful and terrible, but you still gotta kind of just pull on through it. So this series definitely made it into my top 10. The third series that has made it into my top 10 of 2018 is Middlemarch, the series. This is a series where everybody was recommending it to me. I was seeing it everywhere in the literary-based web series circles. Everybody was talking about how great and amazing this series is, how it was beautifully shot, beautifully edited, the characters were wonderful. I believe I watched this really early in 2018, like January, February, and when I saw it, I understood why everybody was freaking out about it, because it was really beautiful. Everything about it was done with so much intention. The quality of all the different areas, the writing, the acting, cinematography, everything was done with such a careful hand. It all had a very soft and nostalgic and subtly emotional vibe to it, and it was just very, very beautifully well done. I really enjoyed how carefully everything was pulled together with the ensemble cast, with the explanations of why they were filming, how they explored things like unhealthy and toxic friendships and relationships. Definitely made it into my top 10 of 2018, and I would not be surprised if it made it into a lot of people's probably their most favorite series that they watched this year. This is definitely a really high quality literary based web series. And this year I really did try to watch a lot more original series rather than literary based web series, because there are so many literary based web series that came out this year. I feel like original series sometimes get a little bit of the short end of the stick when it comes to independent creators and college age filmmakers. I really wanted to watch a lot more of those, but for literary-based web series, this was one of the best ones that I've watched in general, and one of the best ones definitely that I watched this year. Another somewhat literary-based web series that made it into my top 10 web series of 2018 was Edgar Allan Poe's Murder Mystery Dinner. This one was another one where I was seeing everybody talking about it. It was everywhere. Part of that is because the actors and the production company that made this web series have made some other very popular and high-quality series. This also draws from the same canon as a couple other series with the same characters of Edgar Allan Poe and Lenore. I really liked this series. My sister and I watched it in a single night. I loved all the literary references, the depiction of famous writers. I loved the mystery vibes. It just was really funny and also clearly a huge project that a lot of work and love and dedication went into. This is definitely one where watching it I could pick up on even just the slightest details that made a huge difference in world building and crafting the story and the characterization. So we're halfway there, guys. We're making it through. Maybe this video won't be a million years long. My fifth web series of 2018 is Beck and Clem. So this is a very small web series. I've seen almost nothing about it on the interwebs. It doesn't have very many views. It's clearly not as well known as some other series on this list, but the quality of Beck and Clem, the writing gave you just enough information without delving into really long explanations. The acting felt so realistic. The inclusion of Clem's backstory and the history, including those time travel elements, a character from a much older time and a modern day feminist, showing how those beliefs clashed and how they each have things that they can teach each other. The bookends of the first episode and last episode. It was so enjoyable and so well done. I highly recommend it for anybody who's looking to get into more original web series. It was just really well done, and I really enjoyed so many different things about it. It was so creative. It's not something that I've seen before. This definitely made it onto my list. So the sixth series on my top 10 of 2018 is actually a singular season. So this was season 2 of All for One, a continuation of a plot where we have characters in college who are representing the Musketeers. There's a bunch of sorority drama going on. Characters have friendships and relationships that are really struggling in the second season. You definitely do see series grow from first to second seasons. A lot of times characters are more solid, people are more comfortable acting in certain scenarios, especially if it's not their first project. I think that season 2 of All for One was so much more enjoyable for me than season 1. It was astounding, delving into mental health issues and the beautifully healthy relationship between Connie and Dorothy, and how everything just came together. They even had a interactive portion for voting for sorority president that fans got to engage with. And everything just seemed to just strike right deep into my heart. A lot of things that I was missing in season 1 were feeling that the friendships weren't super developed, that I didn't really understand why certain characters were considered likable, why certain characters had a place in the narrative. In season 2, everything was so carefully written and so wonderfully put together. And I could see that the mental health issues that they go into in season 2 were also so deeply personal and so deeply valued by the writers and the actors and everyone involved. And then the twist at the end. If you didn't like season 1, or you just had a lot of things about season 1 that were difficult for you, I really encourage you to give season 2 a chance and see if it changes your perspective of the series as a whole. The next series that made it onto my list was Clairvoyant. So this was another bigger series. It includes very well-known actresses from the infamous web series Carmilla, and I just really liked how both those actresses got to play so against type in this series. It was zany, it was weird, it was funny. Characters were so awkward and made bizarre choices. It had that zany supernatural bent, but it wasn't dark or going deep into a moral quandary or anything like that. It was thoroughly enjoyable, and I think that it did things that a lot of series are afraid to do. I've been getting kind of this vibe, especially from supernatural series in the past couple years, where I kind of think of it as like the Game of Thrones effect, where everything has to be really gritty and really serious. Everything about like trauma and all of the horrible things that can happen in a fantastical world. I think that those stories can be really valuable and really interesting and can really touch the hearts of a lot of people, but the world is kind of a shitty place, and it always has. I feel like it's getting even shittier now. So sometimes it's nice to just have something that's funny and low-key. The stakes aren't absurdly high. You don't watch it and feel like the worst parts of society are just being reflected back to you in the screen. It was so nice to just sit and watch and forget about the shittiness of the world for a while. And so that's one of the reasons that the series made it onto my list. Obviously, it also had really great editing. The acting was really fun. It was really great to see Annie and Natasha in roles that I don't think they typically get to play. This light is like, it's gonna look real weird. Okay. The next series that made it onto my top 10 list of 2018 is From Mansfield with Love. So this is definitely an older series. I hadn't watched it before this year, and it was so soft and gentle and beautifully deep and emotional. I loved Frankie, her quiet strength and her kindness, and the nuances and the subtleties of her personality finally get a chance to be expressed and to be shown on screen. I loved the explanation for why they were filming. I loved the natural acting and the beautiful sets. I loved how realistic everything seemed, which is exactly what you want when you're watching a vlog style series. You want to feel like you're watching somebody's real life. It was super long, so if you're looking for a really long literary based web series a la Lizzie Bennet Diaries, definitely check this one out if you haven't yet. It just covered all the bases of the very classic blog-style literary-based web series tropes. I'm sure when it came out, that time was very well saturated with series that were in a very similar format. Even watching it years later, after we've kind of moved more away from vlog style, it was nice to just kind of take a trip down memory lane. The next web series on my top 10 list is I Put the Bye in Bitter. Season 1, Season 2 is coming out in 2019. It was really nice to see a high school set series. A lot of LGBTQ centered series are set in either college, or they're an adaptation of literary based works, or their characters are working adults. So it was really nice to see younger characters that are still exhibiting a lot of the same traits and have the same storylines. I really liked how it was centered on women of color. I liked that women and women of color were utilized so much in the production and filming and editing process. I think that that's really important. It was really, really well shot. The use of color was really good. The use of the emojis, I've never seen that before in a web series, and I thought that it was a nice way of adding some visual interest and some extra oomph to the emotions that the characters were experiencing. It was just really soft and sweet and made me wish that that's how high school had been for me instead of what it was. And then the last web series that I watched in 2018 that made my list of the top 10 was EARNEST 101. I was not actually expecting to enjoy this series that much. I watched another series that was done with a lot of the same actors and a lot of the same writers called School Spirit, and I didn't enjoy that one very much. I'm just not very into that type of genre, I guess. The work that it was derived from was not a play that I would probably ever enjoy seeing. I wasn't really expecting to like this one that much, but it was so so funny. It was so good. I've seen one other web series based on the importance of being earnest, and so it was really interesting to compare and contrast the performances and where they went with the different plot points and the different reactions that characters had to events. It was so interesting to compare the two and see how, even though a lot of things were very similar, a lot of things were very different, but everything fit really well. I felt the characters had really clear ideas of who they were supposed to be and their motivations. The acting was really good, especially the actors for Cecily and Algernon. They did such a good job of really capturing those traits. The actor for Algernon had me on the floor. Oh my god, I laughed so much. It was wild. It wrapped up very neatly. It was pretty decently paced, so it was actually a really good adaptation, and I'm really glad that I watched it. Another thing I really liked about EARNEST 101 was how they injected the characters' gender identities and sexual orientations into the plot. We had characters who was both Ernest and Jack because one was a dead name. We had characters where part of pretending to be somebody else meant having different pronouns than you actually use or that actually are authentic to you. So I thought that that was a really smart addition. It was very relatable to me as somebody who spends a lot of time with non-binary and transgender people. It didn't feel like a series where the point was, oh, so all of the cishet people can finally understand who we are and what we're about. And that's just always so nice to see, is when I'm like, oh, I'm the audience. I'm not just, you know, happening upon something that I can easily tell is not made by people like me or not made for me. So those are my top 10 series for 2018. A lot of the ones that I did watch that might not have made this list were still really fun and enjoyable for me. I would still definitely recommend most, if not all, of the web series that I watched this year. So if you have any questions about other web series I watched, if you have other perspectives on these series where you're like, I don't see why that one made your list, or how dare this one not make your list, then you can totally feel free to post about it in the comments. And as always, if you have recommendations for me, I'm always adding more to my list of to watch. It's very long and it will not get shorter. I'm looking forward to another year of seeing a lot of new and interesting content, seeing a lot of independent and creative individuals. A lot of content is moving into the public domain now, so I deeply encourage you, if you're interested in making web series, that you take a look at all of the wonderful things that are going to be moving into the public domain. This just is referring to under copyright law. If it's under the public domain, then it's legal to use, basically. Remake something exactly the way it was just because you can, but definitely see what you can be creative with and see, you know, you can't get sued for it. So I'm gonna get out of this light because it was good when I started and now it's kind of doing weird things to my skin. So I will see you next time.